everybody, welcome to the Comic Gear Movie Show. My name is Deshaun, and today I'm going to talk about why I stopped watching the Arrowverse. Now, I thought about talking about this because recently they just came out with their Crisis on Infinite Earth story. Everyone's losing their mind about it. Everyone's saying it's one of the best crossover events they've done. And I'm just kind of out of that loop on that because I've stopped watching. Now, just to give you guys a little bit of backstory, I think, just so guys don't think that I'm completely, biased or anything, I believe that Arrow seasons 1 and 2 and Flash seasons 1 and 2 are some of the best television I've ever seen. They are, without a shadow of a doubt, both of those first two seasons, some of the best comic book anything ever done. It's up there. It's up there with Daredevil. It is up there with, The Boys. It's fantastic. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I thought Arrow seasons 1 and 2 were amazing. I thought Flash was going to be awful, and seasons 1 and 2 were great. Other than one little tidbit in season 1 where with Wells, and I'm just like, how don't you guys know that something's off with this guy? Like everyone does. Like Oliver like the first time they did a mini crossover, the moment Oliver met Wells, he knew something was off with him. So, other than that, I thought the seasons were great. But I started to find problems as the shows went on. Arrow started to go down this repetitive circle jerk of Oliver feeling guilty about something he did in his past, and Diggle having to talk him back off this ledge, or Oliver, freaking doing something else, and they keep showing all these flashbacks that just keep these flashbacks of Oliver's story that just keeps extending and extending and extending. Almost it felt like it would never end, even though it's like only thing that matters is that he got, even though as a comic book fan you're just thinking, okay, he got off the island, he got training, but they just keep extending this backstory. He came home, and then he didn't let his sister know, and then he went off and did this, and then he came back and put on a fake beard and everything, and then it's like, oh no, more stuff happened. He went and joined the Russian mafia, and it's like this thing just kept extending and extending and extending, and I was just like, this is getting freaking convoluted as fuck. And then you got the whole thing with him and Felicity, and he didn't end up with Black Canary in the end, basically, and it was just all kinds of all over the place to me. It was just all over the place, and not only was all over the place, it got repetitive. He started stealing Batman's villains. They barely did, like, DC was in this weird gray area, so they really didn't even use Deathstroke for a long time again. Like, and I thought his villains got progressively cheesier and cheesier. I mean, Prometheus was okay, but even then it was like, and then they had this thing where him and Felicity would just keep breaking up and getting back together and breaking up and getting back together, and it would just be this circle jerk of the same thing over and over again. And eventually I was just like, I can't deal with this anymore, man. And then they do the Monster of the Week thing, and after a while I was just like, I don't know. After a while I was just like, this is just melodramatic circle jerk bullshit that they're just gonna keep doing this over and over again. Black Canary died twice. Fucking his Sarah died twice. People keep dying and coming back almost immediately after they died. It was just like, I just kind of got over it. Because I was just like, let me guess. He's going to have a heart-to-heart with Diggle, and then he's going to overcome it, and then he's going to feel guilty again. He's going to have a heart-to-heart with Diggle, and then he's going to overcome it, and then he's going to feel guilty again. Then he's going to break up with Felicity. Then he's going to get back with Felicity. And it's just like, I get it. And after a while, I just said, you know what? This show's going downhill. And most people agree with me that the show was going downhill. And I heard that it made a good comeback, but to me, it was going downhill. Then you got Flash. Flash, to me, was fun. The first two seasons were fun. They were Monster of the Week, but they did it in this kind of clever, cheesy, but they did it in a cheesy way. They did it in a cheesy way, but they did it in a clever, cheesy way, digestible, clever, cheesy way, in my opinion, with, some of the stuff and some of the ways that they went about the Monster of the Week, because it made sense. The particle accelerator blew up and gave a bunch of people powers. Some people who were good got powers, and some people who were bad got powers. It makes sense to have a Monster of the Week. It's a perfect Monster of the Week setup. You got powers because of this thing, and some other people got powers because of this thing, and let's see what happens. And it made perfect sense to have Monster of the Week, and while having the Reverse Flash in the background as the main villain, and you know, it made sense. And season 2 was even better with Zoom. Zoom was great. Oh man, he was so fantastic. Got Zoom, and like and that was interesting, fantastic. One of the most badass villains that they ever put out in that show. But after that, it started to turn. They started to do weird things. They tried to do kind of Flashpoint, but they did Flashpoint for like 5.8 seconds. They really started to choreograph things, because him and Iris started to date, and all of a sudden, you know, Kid Flash shows up. I forgot and then they started going into different Earths, and it just kind of got ridiculous to me. Like, it started to get to a point where I don't know, Flashpoint lasted but 5 seconds. They did it like that and it was done. And then they did this thing with this Savitar guy who turns out to be Barry, who turns out to be an evil version of Barry. And it just started to go down this. And like, the thing is, the Flash as a character, the reason I was worried about him, because the Flash as a character, a lot of his villains, not all of his villains, but a lot of his villains, they need some kind of heavy CGI, you know, the King Shark and shit. And while at the time, for a TV budget, the CGI looked decent, now it's just hard for me. Like, the CGI aspect just bothers me. Like, even I was seeing clips of Crisis and looking at the CGI, I was just like, I know what this can look like at the full capacity. I watched Avengers Endgame. I know what top-notch CGI spectacle looks like. And you guys are giving me like C-grade CGI spectacle, and I'm supposed to, like, and it's like, I know what the top tier of it looks like. So the CGI bothered me sometimes. When they would try to go for these big things, I'm just like, I don't buy this. And you can tell that they're trying to hurry up and quickly get out of this situation, because they can't afford to pay for this shitty CGI for very long. Because these shows don't have that massive of a budget. But the most important thing is, but the thing that creeped me out is the Iris thing. I know I might be the only one. Can you legally marry your legal stepsister? She's your stepsister, legally. His father, Joe, took custody of him as his son. Can you actually marry your sister? And everyone's just waving it off like it's not that big of a deal. Awesome. You had a childhood crush on her when you were like 8 years old. That doesn't make it 8 years old. But guess what? You've been raised side by side with her as a sister for basically most of your life. So that makes what you felt like when you were 8 years old okay. That is weird. It is kind of gross that this literally was just, not gross, okay, not gross. But it's just weird, and no one ever points that out. How weird that is that he's banging his sister technically, and how that's fucking illegal as hell. But, you know, it just makes it weird the way they went about it. And since you knew that Barry was going to end up with Iris, you knew that certain people were going to die. You knew that no matter how bad it got, it was going to work out. So you knew she wasn't going to die. You knew how bad it got, she was going to work out. And then they started doing this thing and then, like, the thing is, you never bought that Barry was ever going to end up with any other woman. You never bought it. They kind of animated. You never bought that he was going to end up with any other woman. Why didn't he date Felicity for just a second? No. Why didn't he stay with that cop? No. Why didn't he try anything out with, damn it, I already forgot her name. I know it! She was one of the scientists right next to Cisco. Cisco was something that... Cisco, to me, became Captain America Johnny Depp. Personally. He was a character who was fun, because he was always like, ha, pop reference, ha, pop reference, ha, pop reference. But then, all of a sudden, like, he was funny because it was relatable. It made him the most relatable character in the show. It made sense. He was quippy. And then all of a sudden, they try to turn everybody into a fucking superhero. Everyone's a superhero. You're a superhero. You're a superhero. You're a superhero. And then they turn some supervillains into superheroes. And then, all of a sudden, the pop culture references that were once clever are now annoying the fuck out of me because he's just constantly doing it. He's not doing it in the flow of the show. He's doing it as a stick, because this is his stick. That's what he does. And the crossover events were weird because to me, the only person who acted normal in the beginning, like, I don't know what happens in the later crossover events, I stopped watching. But in the beginning, the first few crossover events, the only character who I remember who acted remotely like he consistent is Diggle. Everyone else acted like a hyper parody version of themselves, like to bounce off of the other characters. Like they just act like a hyper parody version of themselves, and that's what it felt like to me, anyways. And you know, Legends of Tomorrow, I couldn't even get into. It's just too ridiculous. It's just too stupid to me. And a lot of people have fun with it. The show's obviously been successful and going on. But the idea of these losers being more important than the big dogs, like, you guys are legends. You guys are important because no one cares about you guys, so we're putting you on this show. That's basically what Legends of Tomorrow was. It's like, we really don't got enough space to put you guys anywhere else, so we're going to just put you on this show and do some crazy shit and just figure it out. And that's what it became. And I was just like, okay, whatever. Sure. And I just could not get into Legends. Like, I have lost touch of the CW. I could not get into the Arrowverse anymore. I haven't watched it in a very long time. I haven't seen Arrow. The last season of Arrow I saw was season 4. Or whatever one Prometheum was in. The last episode of Flash I saw was season 3. I don't even think I made it to the end of season 3. But I know the last season I saw Flash was season 3. And eventually I just said, I'm done with this shit. And I haven't watched a single episode of any of those shows since. I just got annoyed. The acting started to get, like, the way that they go, the way that the CW tells stories can be a bit cheesy, can be a bit glossy, like a very high budget stage play to me. The way that it's done, a lot of the characters, like, I still like some of the actors and I still like them, but it's just, you know, they try to squeeze every bit of the CW needs their monster of the week, and the CW doesn't like to tell long narratives, and I don't need to tell long narratives. Obviously, I mean, The Mandalorian was individual packaging with things, but the thing was like individual, like episodic nature, episodically done. But I don't know. It's something about the CW shows that I just don't like. I don't know if it's that I have. Well, okay, not that I don't like, but I've grown to not like. And the Arrowverse to me is kind of glossy. It's really glossy, and it doesn't have the CGI budget to back up its ambitions, and they get in holding patterns where they're just spinning their wheels too often. There are weird things in it. There are things that I disagree with. There are decisions, the directions that I disagree with in it, and I couldn't get on board with it. So that is why I fell off of the Arrowverse and have not seen it. So I just wanted to put my opinion out there because a lot of people are talking about the Crisis on Infinite Earths thing that just happened, finished up last week, and I see a bunch. And like I still watch Supernatural on the CW. So when I was watching that, I saw like all those shows are coming back to coming back with new episodes. So I just wanted to get my opinion out there. That's my thoughts on the CW. Arrowverse shows and why they're just not for me anymore. So thank you guys for joining me on the Comic Guy Movie Show. Please remember to like, subscribe. See you in the next one.